Today, we're diving into a story about a single project that is so massive, it's not just shaking up one country's economy, it's literally rewriting the energy map for an entire continent. Yeah, this is a big one. Okay, let's start with a number. 650,000. Just let that sink in for a second. Now, what if I told you that's how many barrels of fuel a single facility can produce every single day? That's the kind of volume that can change the entire economic destiny of a nation with over 200 million people.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? Can one massive project, one enormous bet, really transform a country's entire economic reality? Well, for Nigeria, the answer is starting to look like a resounding yes.
To really get the scale of this change, you first have to understand this deeply strange situation, this paradox that was at the very heart of Nigeria's economy for decades.
So check this out. Nigeria is one of Africa's biggest producers of crude oil. It's sitting on a sea of the stuff. Yet for years and years, it was one of the world's biggest importers of the things you make from oil, like gasoline and diesel. The country was literally shipping its raw wealth out, only to buy it back as a much more expensive finished product. It makes no sense, right?
And this wasn't just some weird economic quirk, it was absolutely crippling. It meant the country's currency was all over the place, there were constant fuel shortages, we're talking long, snaking lines at every gas station, and the government was spending billions on massive subsidies just to keep things from grinding to a halt. It just wasn't sustainable.
But then, a solution arrived. And it didn't just show up quietly. Oh no. It came on a scale that is honestly hard to wrap your head around. We are talking about a refinery of superlatives.
And there's that number again, 650,000 barrels per day. That's the full throttle capacity of the new Dangote Refinery. Now, to put that in perspective, that is enough to meet 100% of Nigeria's entire domestic need for refined fuels. Not some of it, not most of it, all of it.
Now, you don't just build something like this with pocket change. We're talking about an investment of $19 billion. This isn't just some African mega project, this is one of the most complex and ambitious refinery builds ever attempted anywhere on the planet. And here's the kicker, it isn't just producing any old fuel, it's making Euro 5 standard fuels. In simple terms, that means it's producing really high-quality, low-emission stuff that meets the same strict environmental and performance standards you'd find in Europe. It's top tier.
You really have to think of this less as a factory and more like a totally self-sufficient industrial city. It's got its own power plant so the lights never go out, and its own deep-sea port to handle the insane logistics of being a global energy hub.
So, what's the bottom line here? What does this all actually mean? Well, it means Nigeria is undergoing a fundamental identity shift on the world stage. The country is flipping the script, going from a dependent importer to a dominant exporter.
And the change is just dramatic. Look at this. Before the refinery, Nigeria had this massive, costly dependence on fuel imports. After, it's basically gone, vanished. The economic shockwaves from this one change are just immense. Let's just run through the wins here. First, it meets all of Nigeria's fuel needs, which means supply is finally stable, no more shortages. Second, it takes a ton of pressure off the country's foreign currency reserves, which helps the local economy. And third, it's creating thousands and thousands of skilled jobs. It's a win-win-win. But the story doesn't stop at Nigeria's borders. Not even close. The impact of this one refinery is rippling outwards, and it's completely reshaping the fuel supply chain for the entire region.
See, with its own needs covered, the refinery has this massive surplus to export. So now it's supplying markets all across West and Southern Africa, and it's even sending high-quality diesel to Europe. All of a sudden, Nigeria is a powerful new player in the global energy game.
For neighboring African countries, this is huge. I mean, think about it. Instead of relying on these long, expensive supply chains from the Middle East, Asia, or Europe, they now have a reliable, world-class source right next door. It's a game changer for their energy security.
You know, when you step back and look at the big picture, this whole thing feels like more than just a refinery. It really feels like a symbol of a new industrial dawn for the continent.
And this quote, I think, just hits the nail on the head. For centuries, the story of Africa has been about exporting raw materials and importing finished goods. This project completely flips that script. It's about taking your own raw resources and creating high-value products right there, at home.
And the refinery is just the anchor. It's sparking a whole new industrial ecosystem around it. We're talking petrochemicals for things like plastics, fertilizers for agriculture, advanced logistics. All these other industries are now springing up.
creating this massive multiplier effect that goes way beyond just fuel.
Which of course leaves us with one final, pretty powerful question. We've just seen how one single project can rewrite a country's and a region's entire story. So, is this the blueprint? Is this kind of mega-scale, value-added approach the model for Africa's industrial future? Now that is something worth thinking about.